And so yeah, so then I started again my freelance career because I literally dropped off the face of the earth. So like all old clients, all old commissioners, all traffic I had to any website died because I literally just cold turkey quit. Basically didn't even say anything. Apart from the clients that I like needed to tell that I was going to be stepping back.
Yeah, we don't have any intro, so we just like go at it or anything like that. We're not
Yeah.
like one fantastic week or anything like that. Or I don't know. Should we do a draftsman intro or something? Like just doop 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 doop. Doop. No, that's Broco.
That is yeah.
Yeah. Am I gonna get copyright strike for that or something?
Let's hope not. Probably not though.
Uh, Matt DeMino, art director, illustrator.
Actually, DeMino.
Matt
But the
DeMino.
minor.
That's how you say
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh right.
DeMino.
Matt DeMino.
I mean, Demina's fine. Like technically, if you're being correct, it's probably Demino. But
Yeah. It's,
immigration, people change names, all
yeah.
sorts of stuff. So it's
Is it
just
Italian? Yeah.
it is. Yeah.
Matt, um, thank you for doing this. First of all, I know that you're super busy all the time
Well,
because you're
yeah,
an art director for 100 different companies or so.
a little
Yeah,
much. Yeah.
Yeah.
crazy amount of work.
So, did
Yeah.
you
It's
have?
a little
Can you
much.
can you tell us a little bit about like a backstory on like how you came up with being an artist and whatnot? Like,
Do you want the whole story? I mean, it's a long.
sure.
It's like
I
a
mean,
lifelong journey.
yeah,
Yeah.
I can edit it. I can edit it short, so it's gonna be like a
Well, I
cut
guess
here
we
and a
can do
cut
it
there.
like.
Yeah.
No,
I mean,
I
we.
guess yeah. You want to do it like start out when what was your first artistic memory like when you were young, or what can you remember of as a kid maybe?
Yeah. I mean, as a kid, I guess I always just kind of drew. I mean, probably like a lot of artists. I it's not that I didn't have social skills, but like I just didn't like really care for a lot of other kids, right? Like I just kind of like I've never been like kind of like a broy dude, so like playing football and stuff at school was just kind of never my vibe. So I just like to keep to myself and I'd draw a bunch. And my mom was a teacher, and because of that, I would go to her classroom after school and I would like go hang out in her classroom while she was wrapping stuff up, and there's like nothing to do. She taught kindergarten, so like I was, just a younger kid in like a much younger kid's class, and so I would just like mess around with her markers and crayons and stuff and just draw. Um, and as I got a little older, like that shifted into like I got really into like painting Warhammer for a while, like really into it for a while. I probably dumped any kind of money I ever made just into like painting minis, and so I was just
That's
always
cool.
drawing. And just like I was that kid that got in trouble for like drawing in class all the time. Like my teachers would always yell at me for like turning in homework with pictures on them and stuff. Like
Classic.
I didn't do bad in school, but yeah,
Yeah.
I just didn't care. Not as much as I cared about drawing. And oh, I think some of my earliest memories of drawing were probably just like getting like poster boards in my mom's classroom and just like drawing all over them. And then I distinctly remember I got like really into the idea of drawing very tiny, like very tiny little pictures. And I would draw these like ridiculous like poster sized battles of like Gundams because I was like super into
All
Gundam
right.
Wing at the time.
Cool.
And so I draw like these like little like ACP like those little like the little tank cannon dudes like just like all out battles of like poster sized pictures of just like things blowing up and like people getting stabbed and just lots of red, lots of
Lots of red.
just like lots of ridiculous like detailed stuff. And actually I unintentionally carried that like level of detail over into like some of my later work when I was learning how to do like a lot of digital stuff. I'd like hyperfixate and like color every pixel like perfectly to like what I wanted. And I was like obsessed with hyperrealism, but like bad at it and like just didn't really quite get what that meant. And
Yeah.
so, but fortunately I grew out of that because it was very slow and very tedious and it showed nothing for it. So just like, yeah.
So this is kind of like when you were more of a teenager, right?
Yeah, I'd say like middle school, like
Yeah.
12, 10 to 12, somewhere in there, yeah.
Oh, you were a digital painting. You were painting digitally by then.
Yeah, so my uh parents got divorced when I was pretty young, and so my mom ended up like dating a man who ended up becoming my stepdad, but he actually worked at in the same school district that my mom did, and he was the multimedia lead chair or something. He ended up teaching like multimedia, but he was also like the director of the program and stuff. And so he had access to just a bunch of programs like Photoshop. At the time, there was a program called Macromedia Flash, which ended up getting bought by Photoshop and just becoming Adobe Flash. Um, and he recognized pretty early that, and this is all my career is probably actually in large part thanks to him, because he
Wow.
recognized very early that digital was going to become like maybe not the next big thing for art, but like a lot of art was going to become digital, either 100% in the
Yep.
future or like just widely used in the industry.
That's
And he
cool.
was correct. And so
Yeah.
he got me on board with all those programs. And I mean, I started using Photoshop when it was like Photoshop 5 or 6 or something like that.
Damn.
This is like well before CS. Like yeah, like well before CS.
Yeah.
So like at this point in my life, I've been using Photoshop for like almost 20 years, probably, if
Jesus.
not more. Yeah, it's been a long time that I've been in Photoshop. Um, but oddly, so like I guess this is kind of like where my like weird art career journey started, because I got really into animation for like a really long time and super influenced by anime and stuff. You know, I watched a lot of like Miyazaki movies and um, like a lot of OVA stuff, like Vampire Hunter D and
Oh,
stuff
I
like
love
that.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a great movie.
I know.
Um, and so I started animating, and so like he at the time I think it was a program called I think it was called Serif Animation or something like that, and then he ended up getting me Flash, which like I said at the time was owned by a company called Macromedia. So I
Yeah.
taught myself how to animate. You know, it's basically flipbook stuff, but like I basically taught myself how
Yep.
to animate like from scratch, and I did that all through middle and high school, I guess it was. And so by the time I got to high school, um, I just like obviously I wasn't a sports kid or anything like that, so like I didn't know what to take for my electives, and I was taking art classes. Like they ended up making it an extra level of ceramics for me because like I just kept wanting to take ceramics. I was like, I don't want to do that. Just can I just take another year of ceramics? They're like, well, no one's ever wanted to take 3 years of ceramics. And I was like, I do, and so like they just did that for me, and so within the multimedia program at my school, there was like I don't know if it was like a history of film or something like that, but there was a teacher in there who like kind of saw my work in passing, I guess, because my stepdad might have showed her or something like that. And she was like, "Oh, like, would," she asked me, like, would I be interested in doing like kind of like a subset of her film class, but like as an animation class
Mm.
where like I would just get to be in her classroom and do animation, and like my final would basically be like presenting my portfolio to the class at the end of the semester.
That's
And
cool.
I was like, sure, like yeah, that sounds neat. So I started doing that, and then she ended up getting contacted by some professors at the local community college in my city, which was called San Antonio College, SAC for short. And uh, they were looking for people that were into animation because like there wasn't a lot of them, and somehow or another, the head of the art department at SAC was helping a local company in San Antonio that was called Bauhaus Studios, Bauhaus Animation, maybe, and they were looking for an intern for animation. And so
Cool.
he came to the high school to look for anyone, and Miss Bradley was like, "Well, I know one kid. Like, there's just one kid in San Antonio who's doing this." So like, she asked me, she's like, "Would you want to go interview for this internship for an animation company?" And I was like, I guess. And actually, I don't even think I had the choice. I think she just kind of like made me. She's like, it's
No
part of your
way.
project now. Like, you have to like go do it. And I was like, oh, okay.
Were you not
So I
excited
ended up.
though? This is like a pretty big gig for
I
a
had
kid.
no idea what I wanted to do,
Yeah.
right? Like, I had no idea what it even entailed. It was literally just like, you're gonna go intern at this company, and I was like, okay, sure. Um, so I took my portfolio. I interviewed. I showed the president and several other people in the company my body of work, and they hired me on the spot. They're like, "You got it, kid.
What was your
Have at
portfolio
it."
like at the time?
Oh,
Like,
it's
did
like
you have?
it was a bunch of like 10-second animations in Flash, like nothing exciting in my mind, nothing exciting. But apparently they thought that it would be beneficial to them in some capacity. Um,
I bet they saw the
so
Have you
because of
potential in you.
done?
what
I bet they saw the potential in you. They went like, dude, this kid can do
I
this. Like, imagine like
yeah,
two
I guess
more
so because
years.
I was only 17, 18 at the
Jeez.
time, I guess. And so because I got it and it was such a good opportunity for me, the school actually redid my second semester of my senior year to be a work study. So I only had to finish the few core classes that I needed. So I think it was like I don't even remember what they were anymore. I think one of them was an art class, and then like three other periods were something. And then after lunch, I'd go downtown to work at the internship. And so like my senior year, I just like cut half of it out and just started making stuff for Bauhaus. And so Bauhaus Animation, they made a program called maybe I can look it up real quick.
Yeah, no
Um,
worries.
it's been so long. It was called Mirage TV Paint, I
Mirage.
think.
Hmm.
Mirage, yeah, it was Bauhaus Mirage. And so I think Mirage, it was this it was a very cool program, and it was digital animation but styled in a way that it was more representative of doing it traditionally.
Hmm.
So you could do like onion skinning, and if you're not familiar with the term, it's basically where like
I think I've
you
heard
can
of. Yeah.
overlay layers in a way that you can like see what you've previously done, and you
Hmm.
can like quickly like
Oh,
flip book
okay.
back through what you've done, so you can like check your animation and stuff. Um, Program got like wildly popular and stuff. A lot of studios used it. I think famously like Family Guy used it to animate like a lot of the shows.
Nice.
Um,
Nice.
but anyways, they ended up shifting the company, and they decided that they wanted to make a social platform for animators because they just like don't exist. Even today, I don't really think that there's kind of a place for them to meet up except for Twitter, maybe ArtStation,
Yeah.
but like
Yeah.
I don't ever really seek that out.
Interesting.
Um, so I ended up getting moved over to the new company because we shifted into a thing called MyTunes, and I started not animating anymore. Like I would do it occasionally, but I ended up becoming like the weird like side gig of like doing web development ads for them. So basically became like a glorified Flash ad person in the company, and didn't really like it, but I actually like learned a lot about graphic design at the time, so I guess
Yeah.
I learned something out of it. But so very long story that's unrelated to this. Maybe we'll have a second one of these where I talk about the downfall of MyTunes. But MyTunes ended up folding, and I ended up getting laid off when I was like 20, um, along with everybody else. The whole company shut down. Um,
Wow.
and after that, I had a really bad experience, like just overall, just probably wasn't a very healthy working environment for someone my age, especially as a first career job. Like I
Yeah.
had one job before that in my life where like was like flipping burgers at a restaurant, right? So like I definitely went in the deep end of a career way too young. And it really killed my drive. I did not draw or animate for 2 years after that, maybe.
Wow.
Like not a thing. Like I literally just like cold turkey quit drawing. Um, I had wanted to be an animator when I worked for iTunes. I actually had the very good opportunity to kind of be like taken as an apprentice. He was like it was not really an apprentice, but like he kind of mentored me. His name was Rusty Mills. He
Hmm.
was very famously the director and producer of a lot of Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain. If y'all are
No
familiar
way.
with either of those cartoons, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
and so he was a great dude. He sadly passed away in 2012, I think.
Oh.
Um, but he was a great dude, and he told me a lot about the animation industry. He told me he wasn't trying to talk me out of it, but he was like, "Look, here are the pitfalls of this industry, and if you really want to pursue it, just like don't go in blind. Like I'm just telling you how it is." And I was very thankful for that. So when my tunes ended up folding, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like it was like animation just doesn't sound like it's for me, really, especially because I hadn't even been doing it for the past year. I had just been doing like art, like I said, like ads and stuff like that for the company. So I just quit. I just kind of like quit everything. Just didn't really feel like drawing anymore. Didn't feel like doing anything. I just kind of, I you know what I did? I just kind of like farted around. I think I played a lot of World of Warcraft. Just kind
Yeah.
of basically did nothing. And then I decided to go back to college because I actually had been going to college. I worked at MyTunes, but I just, just full-time job plus school was not for me. So I dropped out, just didn't really do anything. And so I ended up going back to college and I think I dropped out again or something.
Jeez.
Like I just wasn't feeling it. I just like was not
It just
feeling
was not for
anything.
you.
Yeah. I was just like farting around, doing nothing, being super unproductive, being a waste of space.
Well, sometimes it depends on
And
the college too, right?
yeah, I mean, and this was a community college. Like it wasn't the plan was just to go get my basics done and
Yeah.
just kind of
No, straightforward.
just do whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know what I wanted still. Um, so yeah, I just did nothing and I don't quite remember what spurred me to get back into art, but like there was just I was so uninterested in art. I wanted nothing to do with it. I was like,
No.
I'm gonna be an electrician or something. I don't give a shit. Like I'll
Yeah.
I'll just do anything other than that. And then one day it just like flipped back on and I was like, dude, I gotta draw. I have to draw something. Like I don't
Jesus. What do
I
you
don't
think
know
that?
what I'm doing.
What do you think made that happen?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, probably like a lot of like angsty high school and middle school kids, I was probably depressed,
Yeah.
and I'm sure I was depressed again after all that. And I think they're just art has always been an outlet. It's always been a way to just kind of, escapism in a way,
Do you feel
And
like
so I'm sure
animation kill you drive? You know, it can get like pretty.
for
I've heard
sure
that
it was
animation is super torturous.
it's
Like,
it's brutal.
yeah,
It is
it's a hard
brutal.
gig.
Like it is. There's a reason why I ended up just deviating hard back to just illustration
Yeah.
because you can do so much work in animation and essentially in my mind get nowhere, right? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, look, I animated for a solid 12 hours and I have 2 seconds of film.
Yeah. Yeah.
While like, if you paint for 12 hours, you more than likely at our skill level will probably have a picture
Yeah. You
of
end up
some
having
of some
something.
variety. Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll have something. And so, yeah, something just clicked and I was just like, yeah, I got to get back into drawing. Like I really got to get back into drawing. So I restarted college, started painting again. Um, and like not to be immodest, but definitely my professors, because there was an illustration degree, so I was like, I'll just get my illustration associates while I'm here. And definitely some of my professors were like, yeah, you know how to draw, kid. Like you don't really need to be, like you don't really need to be doing this. Like, and I
You're
was
kind of
just like,
wasting your
yeah,
money.
yeah. Well, I mean, it was community college; it was cheap. Um, and that's not to say that I shouldn't be grateful for being able to go, but um, yeah. So I kind of got like again like kind of mentored by this teacher named Burn Smith, and he was the coolest dude. He had done a lot in his career. He was like he did all the graphic design for the musician Jewel, if you know who that is. She's like I think she's country, but she was like a big '90s star. Um, so he'd like seen some shit, right? Like he'd been all over the industry and stuff, and he definitely encouraged me to keep going.
Yeah.
Basically, like don't stop. Like I obviously like you don't know what you're doing like with your career, but like just whatever you do, don't stop because
That's cool.
I'll definitely if I die, I'll haunt you if you stop. Like you
Yeah.
better keep drawing. Um,
But
um,
back in the day, like, did you ever learn to program or, action script in
I
Flash, stuff
did,
like that?
I did learn ActionScript. Um, Woefully, I'm dyslexic, and so programming is just not the route for me. If I miss one character stroke or something like that,
Yeah.
the script's gonna break, and I
Yeah, you
will
got
not be
nothing.
able to figure out why. Yeah, I'll just be like, yeah. And so I actually learned ActionScript while I was working at MyTunes because again, as the web guy who was doing like
Web
all the
stuff,
ads
yeah.
for the web stuff, like I had to be able to do like the click throughs, and we made a lot of our ads interactable and stuff like that. So yeah, I did learn ActionScript. Hated it, hated every moment of it. It
I
was
bet.
Yeah.
not for me.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
if you wanted to kill my drive, it was Matt become a ad machine that's programming.
Man,
And
I
I
would
was
have
just like,
quit for 2 years as well. I'd taken a sabbatical.
Yeah, yeah.
I got paid very good money to,
Yeah?
so I
Oh,
was,
it's good at
as an
least, yeah.
18-year-old, like making a full-time salary, I was like, oh shit, I'm set. Like I'm
Yeah.
good. Like I'm not gonna leave. But again, like by the time the company folded, I was good and well checked out. I needed something else at that point in my life, and it was forced on me no matter what I wanted, so that's fine.
Cool.
But
Yeah, I
yeah,
remember there was a transition from ActionScript 2 to ActionScript 3, and then CSS 3 came out. And at that point, because I was doing a similar thing, and I just dropped it at that time because it was just too much
yeah,
for my little brain to
yeah. That
handle.
just,
So
well, and I always found it so weird that they just made up a programming language instead of just using something like C++
something,
or something. Yeah, like,
yeah,
I don't really understand why they did it. Just, and it wasn't very graceful, from what I remember. Like it was pretty clunky as a coding language. But I'm not a coder, so that's just my take. None of it ever really made sense to me.
yeah.
But yeah, yeah, it is what it is, I guess. But yeah, and so where was I?
College.
College?
Sorry, I
Is that what you
Yeah.
call it? Yeah.
derailed you.
So I ended up graduating. I ended up staying friends with Byrne. Um, he's a swell dude. I actually need to like see what he's still doing. Um, but again, I didn't like have direction. I just got an associate's from a community college. It's not like I was gonna be like snagging big jobs with that kind of degree, and not that you need a degree in this field anyways. But so I was just like farting around and painting a lot, and I think at the time my girlfriend or a friend or someone suggested that maybe I should try like going to a comic convention to sell some art. And so I think that was the first year that San Antonio had their own Comic Con, and signed up for a table, got the table, printed out everything I'd painted at the time. I was painting just like a lot of fan art, just because that's what was making money. I wasn't. It was easy to paint fan art, sell some prints and stuff like that. So I was doing a lot of fan art. Went to Comic Con. Uh, extremely well for myself, like extremely well. I was talking to
That's
some of the other
awesome.
booth people, and they were like, "You did how many sales?" I was just like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, man, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of like hanging out." And like I was having a great time. They were not, and
What a
I
drag
felt,
being that guy. Everybody looking at you. They're like, what the fuck are you doing, man?
dude, yeah, I was super lucky, and it's not like I was walking out with like 20 grand or
Yeah.
anything, but I did well
No,
enough for
but yeah.
myself, and so yeah, so I think it was at that con. Um, a guy approached me. I can't remember his name, but he basically was looking very specifically for some aliens like xenomorph art, and like I had a piece up in my gallery, and he's like, "Oh, you're like the only person I've seen who can paint a xenomorph in the way that I like. Like, do you mind giving me your email address? Like, I think I have some work for you." And yeah, here you go. And he ended up emailing me, and he owned this company called Albino Dragon, and they made um, like themed poker decks for just various IPs. I think they had done a Princess Bride one, and I think they did a Wizard of Oz one, and they got the rights to do Ridley Scott's Alien, and like I'm a huge Ridley Scott fan, and so they're like,
Yeah.
do you want to do the poker art for the whole deck? And I was like, yeah, sure, that sounds great. So I ended up doing the entire deck, like the box, the gaff cards, like all 52 cards, like I did all the art for the whole deck, and that was like my first like actual freelance job, because like I was not freelancing at the time. I was just specifically just doing cons to make some money, and I was working full time at like a bakery, so like I was not trying to freelance,
Can you remember
because
what
again,
year
I
that was?
must have been like 2012, maybe a little earlier. um and I didn't even have a desire to like freelance at the time. I was just
Hmm.
kind of like floating around, not knowing what I was going to do. I was working at the bakery. I thought it was fine. Actually, like I legitimately love baking, so like it was a job that I liked, and drawing was again still just kind of an escape that could make me some money on the side. So like, why not do it?
Yeah.
Um, but once I got that job, like the job didn't do it, and I didn't do it, but like somehow people just started finding me in pretty short order. So like some like Swedish death metal band contacted me and wanted me to do some like big jobs for them, which I took, and then I just kept getting like bigger and bigger like clients like all of a sudden. And I didn't know what to do, so I was like, I this seems fun. I guess I'll keep doing this, and I ended up reducing my hours at my bakery job, and I just like started accidentally freelancing. And I really don't know what the ticket was because I wasn't. It's not like these jobs were done yet. Like I wasn't even done with the poker deck when like the band came to me. So like I just kind of it like really just happened happenstance, and like I have no clue what the secret formula was for that. Um, so yeah, so like my career was like really starting to build, like really starting to build, and then I got the terrible news that my mom was diagnosed with ALS, which if you're not familiar with is a terminal disease. And so, long story short, my ex and I ended up calling it off, and I moved in with my mom to be like a full-time caretaker for her.
Hmm.
And in that time, I could not concentrate on art in any
Yeah, I
capacity.
bet.
You know, I was too busy taking care of my mom, and I knew that any time out of my mom was limited, so I was there was no brain space for freelance or art in general. I basically again stopped drawing for at least a year in that time. And yeah, I took like a long break, but this was a break that I didn't want to take, right? It wasn't like
Yeah.
the first break. This one was as much as I want to be doing it, I just like don't have the brain space to do it. And so at some point, I think I just had this break where it was just kind of like, yo, you need to draw, you need to do something. You really need to kind of like focus your leftover energy and into something better than just being sad. And yeah, I just started painting again, and I that's when I painted the Fallout pictures, the
Yeah. Those are really
Norman
good.
Rockwell, yeah, the Norman Rockwell pictures. I had a lot of free time. Well, not a lot of free time, but any free time I had, not taking care of my mom and working, I would just started soaking into painting those paintings. And yeah, and I think that kind of like helped me restart my career because they got like retweeted by Bethesda, and it got me like a lot of attention, and
I honestly, I
that like
gotta
really.
say, I thought that that was an official poster. Like,
Oh, really?
it was such a. I have to say, it was such a good job. Most likely, I'm gonna edit it into the whatever we're doing here, and so people can see. It's just I thought that it was a professional job for
Mhm.
Bethesda because it was so well done, and it fell through like dead on with whatever you know that IP was in
Mm.
like Norman
Yeah.
Rockwell kind of like style because it's kind of like very
Yeah.
vintagey. I personally have never played Fallout, but from all the videos or YouTube videos that I watched and all the illustrations that I watched, like, oh yeah, this is pretty much falls into it like perfectly.
Yeah.
And
It was one of those weird things where it was kind of like, why has Bethesda not even done that, right? Because like to
yeah,
me,
yeah,
that
yeah,
the eras are so like they're kind of just like so spot on,
yeah,
and so yeah, it was just one of those. I need to do something. I think Fallout 4 had just come out, so I don't know what year that would have been. And so yeah, it was just kind of like a perfect storm of like needing something to paint, needing something to do,
yeah,
and and just making it. And that really like all I mean because it got retweeted by Bethesda official and stuff, and so like just all the like sudden attention. I think I just started a Twitter account too, so like it was pretty fresh, and just like suddenly getting all this attention like really inspired me again to like start working because I just hadn't for so long. And so yeah, and so then I started again my freelance career because I literally dropped off the face of the earth. So like all old clients, all old commissioners, all traffic I had to any website died because I literally just cold turkey quit. Basically didn't even say anything, apart from the clients that I like needed to tell that I was going to be stepping back.
oh yeah,
And but yeah, I mean, I like vanished off the face of the earth. So I had to restart my my career basically at that point, and it was a lot more slow going this time. Like I really struggled to find clients, and I think it's probably my fault. I think I struggled to know what I wanted to do. There was this kind of like pipe dream of like, oh, I'll just like get into the game industry, and I'll be an illustrator for the game industry, which like
What is that?
what? Yeah, like
Yeah.
what is that?
What
What
does
what does
that
that even
mean?
mean? Yeah. And so, I'd submit my portfolio to like to the odd studio and stuff, and I'm sure they were just like, who the fuck are you? Like, what are you doing? Like, none of this applies. Like, I don't, what the hell are you doing, kid? And yeah, and so then like I got super discouraged because it was just kind of like, yeah, I can't find any work anymore, and I don't know what I want to do. Like, what does a career path in games look like for an illustrator? And one, it's non-existent, but two, it
Yeah.
was gonna to me it was a daunting amount of years of learning and catching up to do to learn any sort of like 3D pipelines. And like I knew Blender, like I model stuff in Blender like very basically just like as drawing aids and stuff, but nothing that could be used in the game industry.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how
They
to UV map or
yeah, they
any
require
of that
specific
stuff.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and
And that's the bulk
no
of
clue.
the work that they need, like 3D mainly.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
2D, you gotta be like handpicked pretty much.
yeah, yeah, and yeah. There's no way that my skill level at the time, or probably even now, is good enough to be like a lead concept artist or anything like that. And again, I'm sure we've all heard over the years just like the crushing, brutal,
Oh yeah.
like working conditions in the game industry, and I just have zero desire to be part of that. And so I impose it on myself with my own crushing, brutal schedules. Um, but yeah, so I just floundered for a bit. I didn't have any focus. I was just drawing whatever. I was drawing a lot of fan art again, just because, again, I just didn't really have the energy to like focus or think about anything like that. And
It's a good business to do that though. I mean, whenever you don't have the
it
energy, doing
is.
fan art is like almost the best thing that you could do. It just pumps
It,
you
I
up.
mean, that's how I made good money for a long
Yeah.
time. But then to me, it got soul crushing, right? Like I
Yeah.
there was a part of me that was very much like I want to do my own stuff. Like I have no
Yeah.
desire to just like harp on other people's IPs. I have no desire to just draw, like whatever was famous at the time. Like keeping up with trends to me, it was just like brutally crushing. Like it was not super fun to just like sit on Twitter and wait for like whatever premiered and then like trying to rush a picture out within the first 24 hours before you miss the hype, because
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of people, dude, and
Yeah.
hey, good on them for being able to do it, but that is not for me. I cannot do that. And yeah, so I mean, to me, I was directionless and I wasn't doing anything that I enjoyed necessarily. And I kind of don't remember my big break. I'm gonna say I think it was a board game for a company called Calliope Games. Um, and they saw my Rockwell stuff and they wanted me to paint some Rockwell style stuff for like this family friendly board game called Everyone Loves a Parade, which I did, and it was great. And like I had a great time. My art director was super great. Um, he was super kind. And then right after that, Nickelodeon showed up and they wanted me to again do some Rockwell stuff. I guess no one was doing Rockwell stuff
Jesus.
like right.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, dude, it was a
Yeah.
pretty intimidating piece. I mean, when I saw it in your portfolio, it was almost like you kind of Googled out some image and you put it in your gallery or some shit, or what happened?
Yeah. And
And oh my god.
yeah, I think I got lucky too because I just happened to discover a good workflow to make it work, right?
Yeah.
Like because that was not really my workflow at the time too. I think at the time I was painting based on like some tricks Dave Raposa had like put out some tutorials for, and so like that's what I was painting. So like to like
Oh yeah.
switch to like Rockwell style like oil painting was like a completely different ball game. And yeah, I just like learned some techniques that like really made it work. And yeah, so Nickelodeon wanted me to paint some Ninja Turtle stuff like in the Rockwell style, which I happily did because I was like a big Ninja Turtles fan when I was a kid. So I was
That's
like, oh
cool.
yeah, that's awesome. And then the cast and crew from the Warner Brothers Flash TV show they wanted to use a picture of the Flash I was working on as like a cast and crew only like end of
That's cool.
season gift. And so like I have these like Flash Converse that they gave me a pair too. So like I have like
Oh,
this pair
that's
of like
neat.
Flash Converse. Yeah, it's super
Awesome.
cool. And uh and yeah, and then just like stuff just like started happening like at random where like I would just get like these like odd clients, but it was not consistent. Like the early start of my career was like hyper inconsistent. Like I would
Oh yeah,
get a really big job and it would be like really cool and like super exciting, and then nothing. Like
yeah.
I would hear nothing from no one for
That's how it goes.
6 months, 8 months, whatever it was.
This
And so I
was
was surviving
what year was this?
2016, 2017,
All right.
maybe at the time. And at that point I was working at the bakery still, but I was predominantly surviving off of commissions. And I ended up just disliking what I was doing at the bakery, so I ended up quitting and going full time to work on commission work and stuff. And that was brutal, right? Like, I mean, I'm sure y'all, if you've ever worked for commissions, like that's rough. Like
Yeah,
it's,
it can be
you know,
pretty unsustainable pretty fast.
I hated chasing the cloud on Twitter, but like I was effectively doing it anyways because I was like spam posting like please hire me for commissions, commission slots open, like,
Yeah.
giving discounts, like just I was taking anything I could find. Um and yeah, and I just did that for a long time, and I think I did that up until what I'm doing now, which is accidentally becoming an art director because
Excellent.
yeah, I had no I
The
had
art
no
director
intention.
truck just like came at you, and you were like, okay,
It
I guess.
Yeah, I had no intention of doing this. And in fact, when I got the offer to um, art direct, so I guess I'll wind back a little time. So I was working, doing commissions, and I got an email from this company called Solar Studios, and they were looking for an art director to help them art direct um, a trading card game. Or just a card, sorry, a card game. It's not a trading card game, but a card game that they were developing. It was supposed to be a digital card game that they were developing, and they asked if I would like to interview to be the art director, and I was like, "Is this a scam? Like, is this one of those like weird phishing emails? Like, have y'all gotten those recently?
Yeah,
Like, I get
yeah,
them, yeah, and they're like they're super shady, and it's like,
yeah.
oh, message us on Signal, and it's like, no, I'm good.
We'll
Like,
pay you
please
in
send us your
crypto.
social. Yeah, it's just like, dude, I get a lot of those too. Oh, they make me
Oh
so mad.
shit.
And uh, and so yeah, I was like not sure that it was even real, and I was just kind of like I'll humor it. Like, why not? I got nothing better to do. And so I ended up getting on like a Skype call or a Zoom call, whatever it was, with them, and uh, they were just a bunch of nerds like me who just they had the pipe dream of making a game, and they just wanted some help from someone that knew a little bit more about art than they did, because all of them were very um, systems oriented, right? Like a lot of them, none of them were artists. A lot of them, they knew how to develop a game, they knew how
Yeah.
to do other stuff, but none of them knew anything about the art world. And so I just kind of like accepted out of, it wasn't boredom, but it was just kind of like, sure, like I mean, if I'm not going to be making money
We're
while
gonna,
I'm looking for commissions, like I may
we're
as
not
well
gonna
do
show them this
something.
interview.
No, they can see it because I've told them that. Yeah, it's just kind of like it was just kind of like I'm not making any money, so I may as well develop something that I find interesting.
Yeah.
And because I liked the pitch they told me was awesome, and I really liked the world that they were developing and stuff, and so I signed on. And I think maybe 3 or 4 months later, this was always planned, but they flew me out to New Jersey to like meet the team and formally sign contracts and everything, as we all hadn't signed a contract or anything.
That's
And
pretty
so
legit.
yeah, and so I flew to New Jersey and I met with them for like 3 days or something like that, and we hashed out plans and stuff, and we formally signed my contract and all their contracts, and we established Source Studios as an actual studio. So like I helped found the studio at that point. Um, but in that meeting, um, I quickly realized that like making a game with just the five of us was gonna be like soul crushing,
Yeah.
right? Like for the pipelines, for like just getting stuff out of the door, but zero funding. It was like, dude, this is gonna be soul crushing.
Yeah.
Like there's no way we're gonna finish this in the next 2 years. Like it's gonna take us five at this rate. Like there's no
Yeah.
way. So I suggested that like why don't we take the IP and why don't we modify it to um, fit like Dungeons and Dragons 5e rules and sell it as a core book. Just because like there was a lot of similarities in my mind between like the
Yeah.
fantasy that we were developing and D&D, and I was like, I mean, this adapts really well. Like we could easily adapt this and then kickstart it, and any money we make from the Kickstarter, we can just fold into the next project. And if we snowball enough of these things, one day we can look into like making the card game that we want to make. And we accepted as a company, and we ended up kickstarting Red Sky, and we kickstarted it to like the tune of like $68,000 or something, which is good.
Yeah.
For a first Kickstarter for any of us, we were all super excited, and I was super proud. But I fully art directed the entire project, like any of the visuals, any of the ads, any of the cover, the website, all of it, the
No,
trailer.
and
Like
not
yeah,
only
like
that, I think you made the bulk of the imagery for that project, right?
for the Kickstarter, yeah,
Yeah.
I we commissioned out maybe just 12 pieces of art for the Kickstarter, and I did all the rest. So I
Yeah.
developed all the characters. I developed, like I said, the logos, the trailers. I did the entire story for the Kickstarter. I designed the website. Our CEO Brandon, he put it all together.
Jeez.
Um, but just yeah, everything, an incredible amount of work for one dude to do. And
Yeah, I gotta
sometimes
commend
I look
you.
back on it.
Not only that, it's a huge amount of work. It's just
Yeah,
it was done excellently. Like it was
thank you. Yeah,
such a good work. That the quality of the artwork is just great. It's just
thank
mesmerizing
yeah.
how much you did in a period of
I
time and the
I look
quantity.
back and I'm just like, wow, how did I do that? Like I really don't. I don't
It was like
remember.
a
Like
dream. Just
it is it is a fever dream because like I remember it was like the night before the Kickstarter, and I was like still finishing assets for the Kickstarter. I was like
jeez.
revising stuff, and it was like the day it went live, I was like still patching stuff together and like throwing stuff up, which is not the
Wow.
greatest way to start a Kickstarter.
No.
Um, but I mean, it was polished. Like it
Yeah.
was fine. There was just things that I wanted to fix while it was live, and so I did.
It's very high
Um,
quality. The amount of imagery that you put in it.
you know, and so because of Red Sky, actually, and so I mean, I post my art all the time on like well, I used to. I actually don't keep up with social media too much anymore, but I used to post all my art all the time on like Reddit and Twitter and a bunch of Facebook groups and stuff like that. And so leading up to Red Sky was posting all the Red Sky art I did on various Dungeons and Dragons groups on Facebook. And I ended up getting a friend request from someone, and this isn't uncommon. People like friend request me, and I usually just accept them in case they want to commission me later or something like that. It was a pretty standard procedure for me to just accept strangers and just hope that they're
Yeah.
not like crazy. Um,
Oh boy.
and so this one guy, his name is Travis Gray. He friended me, and we never spoke. It was like maybe 6 months later, if not more. And he just randomly messages me, and he was like, "Hey, would you be interested in uh, art directing a little project for me?" And uh, I was like, I mean, maybe. Like I had just come off the heels of Red Sky, so I was like, dude,
Uh,
I can't do that level of project again in the same way that I did with the compensation I got for Red Sky. I I worked on Red Sky as like a passion project, as like a love letter to things that I love, and with the understanding that I'm a founding member of the of Sora Studios. And I was like, I mean, there's got to be some compensation in here. It's got to be a job. It can't just be a fun thing.
yeah.
And he was like, "Oh yeah, no, totally. I want to hire you as my art director for my company." So Travis brought me on to be his art director for Scoundrel Game Labs, and we recently, as of April, I think it was in April, kickstarted Griselda's Guide to Ghost Hunting, which was a very successful Kickstarter. We raised like 140 some odd $1,000 for that one.
Nice.
And yeah, and
Congratulations.
during that, thank you. Yeah, we were both very excited about that, and we have another one planned soon, but which is more work. Um, but during that time, I had been doing some artwork for Ghostfire Games because again, it was one of those like, dude, I need some work. Like I was just like throwing my portfolio in any art drop I could find. I did some work for Art Talsorian Games. I got to do some. I did a work that is still buried under NDA probably for the rest of my life for West Studio and just a bunch of other stuff. And so I started doing some work for Ghostfire Gaming under the under a very wonderful art director named Ona Christensen. And partway through me doing that project, she was like, "Hey, I know you've been art directing some other stuff. Would you be interested in like maybe doing some art direction for us? And we need some help." And again, it was one of those like I just want to draw. Like, why do everyone keep asking me to art direct stuff? Like, I just kind of want to draw some pictures, dude. Like, why is it so hard? And but she was like, "No, I think you can do it. Like, why don't you? I'll put your name in the hat as someone I think should be given the opportunity to do the job." And I was like, "Okay, like, sure, like, let's go for it." And I submitted my portfolio to her boss, and him and I chatted a little bit, and he was just like, "Yeah, we want to bring you on to be the cinematic director for Ghostfire." And so I accepted the job. So now I'm the art director for 3 different companies all at one time, and I am actively doing a whole bunch of it, and
Wow.
it's a little wild. Yeah, at any given day I probably send out, like, which doesn't sound like a lot, but if you've ever art directed anything, it's like sending out 30 emails of art direction takes a
Yeah.
while. Like,
Oh
that's a
yeah.
full day of work, and then I have art to do on the side as a freelancer, and so it's
Jesus.
just kind of, yeah, it's a lot of work.
So how
But you're
much
still drawing.
coffee? So sorry, you go first.
So you're still actively drawing and working on illustrations yourself.
Yeah, I am. Not terribly too much for any other clients right now. I'm still painting the final touches for some Red Sky stuff, and for Ghostfire right now, I'm still doing some freelance illustration for them as well for a project I started before I became the AD on this thing, and so. But so I'm the cinematic director for Ghostfire, so I'm basically just ADing trailers for them for stuff that they need for any new Kickstarters or stuff like that. So, but yeah,
Is that
it's been
much
fun.
more difficult than the normal art directing? And I would say
I
normal art directing is kind of like like just art directing the project itself.
I'd say no, because the scope is so much smaller. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I just need to do I just need to fit enough cohesion into a minute 30 that like it reads well. But like doing that whole thing for an entire book, like that's an incredible amount of work. Like doing it
Yeah.
for Red Sky was an incredible undertaking because I mean Tyler and I, who's the um, like lead lore writer on our team for Red Sky, we probably sent out combined easy like 150 emails just like looking for people, probably more than that, honestly. Like we reached
Jeez.
out to a bunch of people, and it took months to kind of gather all the people together and stuff, and I think we commissioned out like 150 170 pieces of artwork for that book alone, and most of it is I mean, you worked on some of it with me, and like most of it's like full body stuff, if not
Yeah.
half page illustrations or whatever. Like most of it's pretty substantial art. I'm the one who's doing like all the spot art in the book, so
Yeah.
like I think all in all we're gonna have like 220 some odd pieces of individual art in the book. It's a lot of art, but like the trailer, I just needed 10 pieces of art or something like that. It's not a
It's
terrible amount.
yeah, it's really amazing how Red Sky is going to come out with a bang. I feel like it's just it's such a beautiful project. Like a lot of people are going to take that as like, "Oh, this is how you do it." Cuz also like the storyline, the design around it is just like pretty well done. This is not an ad, by the way, to anybody looking out there. It's just yeah, I personally work for like what's 6 8 pieces or something like that. I think 8 9
I think
9
eight,
pieces
eight
with a half
was it
page.
9 really?
I think so with the half
Yeah.
page because it was
Yeah,
4
yeah, it
4
must have been. Yeah.
in the half page, and
Yeah.
I had a blast. It was really fun. Yeah, I really love
Well,
working with
yeah.
projects that just the ideas behind it and just like the inventive of certain characters and creatures is just like I don't know, like out of this world. It's not like the typical like elves and orcs and whatnot. Like we're just getting like super, cliche by now.
Yeah.
But
Well, I mean, that's why I took on all these jobs, right? Is
yeah,
because there was something about each one of them that I really just enjoyed. Like for Griselda's guide to ghost hunting, it's just like yeah, it's like elves and orcs and just traditional D&D races and stuff, but it's like but I can make it like spooky, and I can make it like ghosts, and I can just kind of like be as serious as I want to be with it. Like Travis was basically fine with just saying, "Hey, like whatever you think is the good fit for this, like let's
yeah,
go for it." And he
that's cool.
basically gave me free will. I mean, we bounce ideas off each other, but like for the most part, it's
You're the guy.
him and I just, yeah, we just work together, and he just trusts me to come up with a vision for something. And he's, I think, almost across the board, with like maybe one instance he had like a different suggestion, but like for the most part, anything I suggest, he's like, sounds bitchin', let's do it. Like, so, and it's super fun. Like it's I mean, as cliche as ghosts maybe are, it's really fun to like kind of plug them into a fantasy world like D&D and kind of like go wild with, not that ghosts aren't supernatural, but like a little more over the top
Yeah,
supernatural ghosts than just the
yeah,
run of the mill, like, oh, it's a poltergeist or whatever it is, like,
yeah,
And so it's been super fun. And same thing with Ghostfire. Like, I feel like anything Ghostfire's touched in the past always really struck me. Like, I'd see all their Kickstarters and stuff, and always just be like super interested. And so when they approached me to like, do you want to do some AD stuff for us? I was like, absolutely. That sounds like a blast. Like, and everything that I've done so far, I've had the greatest time working on. It's just been super, super rewarding, super fun. And in such a different way than illustration, right? Like, there's certainly like this like cathartic feeling when you finish a picture that you like really enjoyed
yeah,
working on, right? You're like,
yeah,
oh, it's like that was such a good, what a good journey that was. Like, I learned so much. Like, I learned so much every time I paint something, right? Whether it's
yeah,
like it's like, oh, I learned how to paint ooze like really well, or like, oh man, like I really like knocked perspective out of the park in that painting or whatever. Um, but there's something like super cathartic too about finishing an AD project, and it's so cohesive. Like when it actually comes together and it's cohesive, and it's just like, I really enjoy like having a hand in it, but like not being the reason it looks so good, right? Like, I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
like being a good AD is super important because you need to give people obviously like good direction to make things cohesive, but like it's really the artists that put it together. And when an artist and you mesh really, really well, and you can give good direction and they take direction really well, and everyone just comes together and like makes the piece like super solid, super cohesive. It's so rewarding. I guess like Red Sky, right? Like we were just talking about, like
yeah,
Red Sky looks fantastic. Like
yeah.
I've not been so excited. Like it's going to be the crowning piece in my portfolio for a long time because it's just been so rewarding and so well put together. And it's not just me. Like I'm not like trying to toot my own horn. Like we've got 15, 16, maybe 20 artists on the project who have all done stellar work, you included. Um, our writers are fantastic. Like just everything. It's just that's
Yeah,
like chef
it
kiss.
looks like a pretty cool group, honestly. I mean, whenever I shouted out like on my social media, like it was real. Like I felt like this is kind of like gonna be like a if they keep it up like this, they're gonna be like, you know, blowing away all other companies that are gonna be like, oh, we got some competition coming. You know, we gotta step
Yeah.
up our game because there's so many
Fuck.
other companies and they're gonna remain unknown, unnamed right now. But there's so many other companies that are just like been doing the same thing for a very long time, and they're just
Yeah.
like starting to fall off. The pay's not that great.
Yeah.
You know, like the other stuff is just like it's so amazing like how just a startup company like this can just like blow things out of the water so easily.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised by our own success, honestly. Like, not that I didn't think we couldn't do it, but I mean, I mean, these books are a dime a dozen. Like, let's be real. Like, there really are every week on Kickstarter, like 3 or 4 of these things drop in, and that's just
Yeah,
Kickstarter. That's not like Indiegogo or any other thing like that. And so, for us to even fund in general was surprising in a way. And then the fact that people have kept backing us because we have late pledges and stuff, and we get pledges every week, and so like people are still interested in us, and it's surprising in a way to me, but it's also, yeah, we've heard it multiple times that like your quality is so high for being a startup. Your quality is so high for having
wow,
just for basically having no money when you started. And again, not to toot my own horn, but like largely that was just me from the beginning until we could literally scrape together like a few
yeah,
dollars, like, right? Like it was largely a few of the guys in the company just pulling their own money into the project and just being like, let's get this off the ground. and it's amazing what we did with like 5 grand.
Yeah.
5 grand and
Yeah.
me, like essentially, and it's just like it's wild. Um, and yeah, and I told you this, right? Like the whole NDA thing is just like so stupid to me, right? Like
Oh yeah, that's
I
something
hate like
particular for me too. It's
yeah,
just
like I hate reserving art, and I hate like I said, I did a thing for like it was like a project pitch for a television show for HBO or something for West Studio. I don't even know the name. Like the NDA is so deep on that thing. Like I don't know what it was for. It will probably never see the light of day. I
yeah.
can never post the work, like right. Like I can only ever say, oh, I worked on this project for West, and that's it. And it's like that sucks because I was actually super proud of that piece, but it'll
Yeah.
never see daylight.
And it's
And
stuff that is so important for us artists
yeah,
because it's just
yeah,
like, I mean, the payment, yeah, if it's good paying gig, like you're gonna fill in your bank account and whatnot, and it's gonna help you with the savings or whatever you're needing. But uh, and most of the times, like for freelance, like that's gonna just like blow away really fast, and whatever really remains is the work that you did, which
yeah,
I imagine that is the best work that you ever try to do every time. And that is so freaking important for your portfolio, which is going to get you even better gigs and more gigs and stuff like that. And it becomes an investment. It's almost as like 50% of the payment, I would say, is just like
yeah,
getting the work
Is
out.
having your piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because it sucks. I mean, I've learned this as an AD too, and I don't think you guys have necessarily ever been on this side, but like have y'all ever like sent your work to an AD or like a portfolio drop and you're like, oh man, like I'm so like I'm super confident in this, and they just like never get back to you or they pass you up or whatever, and it's just like why? Like why did I get passed up? And like as an AD, I now know that because the art hunt is so brutal
Yeah.
when looking for people, like you have to impress an AD within like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And something I found myself doing was checking people's quality over the years of their portfolio. And so if I see someone's like been
Hasn't
like
changed.
super
Yeah.
like yeah, it like hasn't changed and it's been like 6 years, or their most current piece is like 2 years ago, like I'm probably going to pass you up because I have no idea what your quality is right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that also sucks because like we just said, like if you're in NDA hell, you literally don't have a choice. You just can't post your
Yeah.
art unless you're
Exactly.
painting on the side in your free time. And a lot of us just kind of like don't have free time when you're doing the kind of grind for freelance. And
Yeah.
so it sucks. Like it's been a learning experience as an AD to like finally be on the other side of it and finally understand why those choices get made because I'm the one who's making them now. And it feels kind of weird, and it's certainly not my favorite thing to do, but certainly if people reach out to me and ask like to look at the portfolio or whatever like that, I will find time to give someone a portfolio review, or just give them some pointers or point them in the right direction or tell them what I think they need to work on to get into the industry or whatever. And because I mean, I was so directionless for so long that like I would just rather help someone even if I
Yeah.
really don't have the energy to do it, because there's no guide, there's no book. I mean,
No,
I guess there
there's
are a
none.
few books, but the books don't help, and it's just kind of you're left to paddle alone, and
Yeah.
that's not a fun experience when you're in
No.
this industry, and you're especially if it's your income, or like you're like me and you're
Exactly.
just like, oh, I'm just gonna quit my job and be a freelance artist. Like that's a super good decision. Like no, it's such a
Right.
hard transition.
Yeah. And this is a great like opportunity, rare opportunity for people to hear an art director actually talking about these things because like you said, so many times you just send your emails out and get no reply and you wonder why or wonder what's going on. And maybe sometimes it's just the wrong time, sometimes your portfolio is too old, or it could be so many different things and people are just left wondering what the hell, why.
Yeah, and
But
those are all true. Like like for Red Sky, we wrapped up Red Sky art like a month and a half ago or something like that. And I still get emails about people asking me for Red Sky, and I'll respond to them and just say, hey, I'm sorry, like I literally just don't have any more work for Red Sky right now. Hopefully in the future I will keep you
uh,
in mind, and I do. I actually keep a list. I keep a running list of people I think that would be viable for projects, and fortunately I've through Red Sky been able to find people who maybe were like just starting in the industry or like trying to dip their toes in, and I was able to pull them with me to go work on stuff like Griselda's or Ghostfire because they have talent, but they just haven't had the opportunity to like do something bigger. And hopefully, when my work for Ghostfire comes out, it will be a great portfolio piece for them, and it'll help them land better jobs and more jobs. And hopefully, as my career gets better as an art director, I'll pull some of those people along with me just because I mean, that's really what you need, right? You just need an art director to trust you at some point,
Yeah.
and then help you out. Because I mean, that's what Ona did for me, right? I was doing all this work for her, and whatever book she was working on for Ghostfire, I think it was the Questonomicon. I mean, and she trusted me so much that I ended up doing like 30 some odd pieces of art for that book, and then she just, I guess, liked me enough with how communicative I am and stuff, and she just said he would be good to AD some stuff for us, and basically just gave me a chance. And honestly, I mean, most artists are, maybe not most, but a good number of artists are up to snuff, right, to like work in the field. And it's just so competitive that like a lot of them, I mean, like I get it, like 80s play favorites, you have someone you want to work with, and so you just keep hiring them again and again and again. But if you're being preferential, that doesn't leave room for new blood to like kind of enter the market,
Yeah.
and
It gets
that kind of
pretty
stinks.
competitive real fast.
Yeah,
And it
yeah,
stays like that for a very long time too. I don't think that it ever goes away unless like you've been working at it for like 25, 30 years, and
yeah.
you're already kind of like a big, you know, name in the industry, you know. So um, I don't think that we talk at depth at it, but what we were talking about like previously with the Solar Studio like releasing images very soon. I don't I don't think I've seen any other company uh, doing that. Like I think you guys are the first like that at the same time that you're forming even work in progress, you can put it out in social media as an artist. Like that
Yeah,
is
yeah.
unheard of. I've never heard of that.
I mean, to me, it just seems so weird not to, right? Like it's not like I get it in very specific instances where you're like trying to keep a film under wraps or you're trying to keep a game under wraps, just like so the hype train doesn't get out of control or whatever it is. But like it seems so weird to me that companies hold a lot of the pipeline to their chest, right? Like they don't want anyone to know how it gets made. I guess they're trying to preserve a
Competition, stuff like that.
yeah, like either competition or like try to preserve some sort of mystique about like how these things happen. But like I find it so endlessly fascinating how artists go from sketch to final. Like I love watching people's like progress shots or progress gifs and stuff. Like
Yeah.
I find it so
Yeah.
interesting how
It's so
even
educational.
two artists that have yeah, and how two artists will have like such a similar style, but they have like completely different ways of achieving it.
Yeah.
And I just find it super interesting. And I think for people who want to get into the industry or even just like knowing like behind the scenes, right? Like behind the scenes is interesting. Like a lot of people might undervalue a book, right? Like $50 for a book, like that's super expensive. And it's like, I mean, you would realize how cheap it is for how much work goes into a single book, right? And Sora Studios instance, on any given page, it took six people, that's all of us plus whatever artist's art is on that page, and a year and a half to get it to you, right?
Yeah.
And times 300 pages. Like it's an incredible amount of work. And to just like pretend like it doesn't exist for 2 years is like insane to me. Like we have the art, show people the art. They paid for the art. They want to see the
Yeah.
art.
Yeah.
And if they didn't pay for the art, maybe they'll get excited about the art and then buy the book because the art's in it. And that's
Yeah.
you
And
know,
it
for
helps.
better or worse, that's the goal.
Yeah, and I feel like it helps also like the company to just like hype it up to other people that are like artist enthusiasts because a lot of the
Yeah.
industry today, like game industry, is about art quality pretty much.
Mhm.
Like it's something that I found also revolutionary was with like the what was it, the Mandalorian series too, like they put the concept art, some of the concept art or visual key
At the
art
end.
at the end.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that
I
was
love
really
it. Yeah.
cool.
It's super
And
cool. Yeah.
it looks great, and I imagine like the artists that had to work on those pieces, they were like blown away. It's just like this is the best moment of my life. Just like
Yeah. I can't
um,
believe people hadn't realized that before because just the fans love the art. You
It's
you
so
see it on
good.
Reddit
Yeah.
all the time. Like people are going crazy, like, oh, who's the artist or who did this, and commenting on little details they find and Easter eggs and all sorts of stuff on games and everything, like all sorts of media. So really, I'm glad you guys set an example, and also like what you were telling us about. It was just five of you at the first, when you started out, and you had a small budget, and the amount of stuff you did, and like just the quality of it, and you don't get like the first impression you get is like, oh, this is a huge company, and they're putting out another professional product. But then you hear like the behind the scenes, and it's like, no, you guys are just like putting your all into this, and
Six
like a small
people.
team, a little bit of
It's
money,
just-
6 people. Like it's amazing.
Well, that's what I actually kind of think, unfortunately, that's been a detriment to us because I think we are a little too polished to the point where like people assume that we're a much bigger group of people than we
Yeah.
are and that
uh,
like we don't need
chewing
the
more than you
support.
can eat.
Yeah, and like we actually really need the support. It'd be great. Please support us. Like it's like, it's like we're not a big company. Like we don't have any backing. It's just the will of us trying to make something into reality. And I guess it says a lot about us as a company. So like I'm super happy to like hear that kind of praise and review of our work. Um, so yeah, here's hoping that we do something bigger in the future. But yeah, like to get back to the other thing, like it is why like I feel like everybody, whether they realize it or not, most people are fans of art,
Yeah.
right? Like even people who are dismissive of art are actually fans of art. I mean, it's an everyday fact of life. You see art in some capacity, um,
Yeah, I
for the
think
most
like
part. I
the
mean, like,
question of whether the art is important for the mechanics of the game is that's a different thing. But the art itself, like it helps so much to
yeah,
propagate
and
the
so like
game.
releasing that stuff early, it just seems like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah.
And I actually hope most more companies start to do it because like I'm the kind of guy that like I won't like if a game's coming out, like I don't buy anything other than the game. And yeah, I usually just like wait till it's on like super sale or
Yeah.
something and like buy it for $10. Like I don't buy new release or anything like that. But if a game that I'm excited about has like a collector's edition with like an art book, well, I will absolutely drop like $250 to like get the collector's edition art book. Like 100% of the time. Like if you want me to buy something, we'll absolutely buy the art book for whatever game it is. Because like I'm just a sucker for art, right? Like it's just like you can't get me more excited about anything other than like a finished product's art book. Like I will absolutely tear into that thing.
And I
And I
can
will hunt down like
understand.
every artist in that project and like watch their work and stuff. Like 100%.
Yeah. No, me too. And also, I can understand why Magic the Gathering doesn't release much of the artwork, and that makes me think about it too. Is like whether they have an option to do that or not, because much of the product is, I mean, the product is collectible. So if you're pretty much like, and competitive, so it's pretty much like you're showcasing what's going to be. Oh, we got Innistrad for when I was working in Innistrad, like I couldn't tell anybody supposedly that I was working on Innistrad because some of the people that are hardcore, you know, Magic the Gathering gamers, they just like I don't know, like I think that they would just like make a different type of. They start getting prepared in a different way. I don't know. It just has like a different type of like, um, I guess like hype or just like a type
Hmm.
of like the consumer is different. It's like you got collectors that are really really hardcore, and there's just like everybody's like waiting for a release or kind of like a what I don't know, something that escaped the grapevine. Just like everybody like picked it up. It's just like, oh shit, this is what's
Spoiler.
coming up. It's like
Yeah.
somebody from the inside, like we got an informant
Yeah.
or something like that. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah. I mean, I guess I get not releasing stuff for certain things when you're trying to like yeah like keep something under wraps to make it a surprise. But like where's that line end, right? And
yeah,
like what do you
exactly. That's what
do? Like
it's so
what do you like how is it helping them to keep it under wraps?
mm,
Like as opposed to like revealing it as like a sneak peek or a teaser or something like that. It's not like you're going to release the mechanics of the game, like you said, right? Like the mechanics are one thing separate from the art, and the art just helps highlight those mechanics in whatever way, especially in Magic. And so to me, I don't understand like why they wait so long and they just kind of do. I mean, and I'm sure it's just because of release pipelines and stuff. They're
yeah.
such a giant company. Like
Oh yeah.
that's just a
Now,
completely different beast about how stuff works.
yeah,
But as long as I have the ability to in certain projects, I will absolutely release art when it's available to release. Like we do that with Griselda's Guide to Ghost Hunting on the Discord. Um, Anyone who backed the project is like can join the Discord, and anytime we get a piece in Travis, like like it's like the minute he's paid for it, we spoil it. Like the minute, like it literally, like he will immediately post it on the Discord.
yeah,
It's just like, all right,
that's
like there
cool.
you go. And it's fun because like
Awesome.
you see all the people like get super excited about it, right? It's just
Yeah,
like
yeah,
another thing to keep excited about instead of waiting like a year and a half for the book to finally get in your hands. Like you don't know what it's going to be like in the context of the book, and so it's a completely different journey once you have the book in your hand to like re-explore all these pieces and stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I will absolutely always spoil stuff for people when I get the chance to because it's just fun.
yeah. I hope this starts catching on and like people listen to this or see this or whatever, and just you know, because why not, right? And
Es-
people enjoy the
es-
art, so
Especially indie projects. Like if you have the capacity as an indie creator to do so, I'd say do so. It's been nothing but beneficial for us. I mean, it just drives hype. It drives um, any sort of attention you might want. People get excited. They share the art.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked to hear that it was actually the make or break deal for certain people to like pick up the book, right? Like they saw the art
yeah,
early and they decided, oh, it looks like something I like. I'll definitely back it. So I would absolutely recommend it. And for the sanity of artists too, please release the stuff. Release them from
Yeah.
NDA as soon as possible.
For his sanity, for mental health. But yeah, I mean, like, it is pretty. I mean, I don't know, crazy, but it's just like it's really interesting how you came up with your career as kind of like you. I mean, not to this. All your talent is all well deserved, but it's just like it feels like it was all like coincidences. You know, just
It
like
was, yeah.
everything was very coincidental and
But what's
not like
super,
yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
No, and I was saying like not just like because I feel like in my own experience I pressured into it a lot.
Mm.
I tried to get into things. I tried to point out for whatever I wanted, and I tried and tried and just like ended up like against the wall and just like, hey, let me in, like that meme of the guy, you know. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's
It's weird because I again I 100% stumbled into being an art director, like 100%. I did not pursue it in any capacity, and I'm kind of glad I didn't because I guarantee you I would have been in a completely different place if I did.
mm,
But the thing that's been weird about my career is that like every little thing that I did led me to having the skill set needed to be like a pretty competent art director, right? Because I've touched pretty much every facet of creation for like print media, right? So like as an animator, um, I just understood like I had to learn like motion and stuff like that. And when I was working for that job, I ended up becoming like kind of a glorified graphic designer in many ways. And so like I learned a lot about typefaces and graphic design, and my mentor was a typeface guy and like a typography teacher. So like I learned a lot about typefaces and typography, and then between that and graphic design, I've become a competent designer. And then I've learned a lot about illustration. And then I learned a lot about like movies by wanting to be like I've learned so much with every weird facet of my career that like when it came to like designing a full project like Red Sky, I knew how to do basic web design and like graphic design, and I knew how to animate so I could make the trailer for us, and I do illustration, and I predominantly do character design so I could design all the like I had everything I needed to do to just make the book like alone, which would have been a nightmare to do it alone, but like I basically had the entire skill set laid out before me. And so even doing the cinematic directing for Ghostfire, right? Like I have a background in animation, so like I know how to do storyboards and I know how to do timing and I know how to do like VO matching and stuff. Like I know how to do all this stuff that I normally probably wouldn't have known how to do had I not taken every step before I got to this point. And it's
yeah.
just super convenient for me more than anything because it was just kind of like, oh, hey, I guess I know how to do that. Sure. Like what? It's like it's like messing around with like circuits and then just being like, oh, I'm accidentally a master electrician. Like I don't know how that happened, but it just did. Like it just I just was given the tools and somehow it ended up being a productive job for me. So
Yeah, but
Right.
the positivity of it, I think that is just something that it's really cool to highlight because honestly, most of it is deserved because you said yes to all the opportunities that presented to you. You know, you went like, right now, maybe I'm in a low, I'm in a funk or anything like that. It's just in some opportunity presented in an awkward moment, but you said yes regardless. You know, some other
mm,
people might have said no, and they don't get that opportunity to get that experience.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a big piece of advice I have is that like unless you truly know that you don't have the energy or the time or whatever it is, like if you can push a little harder on yourself, absolutely do it. Like it'll be worth it in the end. But don't push yourself so hard that you make yourself sick or you hurt
Oh
yourself in any
yeah, yeah.
way. But like, but but if there's an opportunity and you're just like on the fence because you're like slightly scared or like whatever, like just push by. Like you
Yeah,
gotta keep pushing. Like it's kind of unfortunate because like it's a hard industry to get into. It's super hard to get into. And there's a lot of artists that I see that are like super talented and like I mean they might just only post on Twitter or something like that, but like their day job is just so crushing that like they just don't have the energy to keep going, and it's just like I wish I could say, oh, just quit your job and like just do art full time, you'll
I
make
know.
it, but like
Yeah,
that's not necessarily true, and so you can't suggest that to someone, but like like if there's a day where you have a little bit of free time, I hate to tell you to like give it up to like do anything else, but like just try.
yeah.
Please try for like your sake
Try.
and my sake because it makes me so sad when there's a very talented artist who
Oh,
wants to be
me
in the
too.
industry. It's one thing if they don't want to be in the industry and they just paint because they like painting, but like
Yeah.
if you're trying to get to the industry and they just don't have the opportunity to do it, it's like soul crushing for me, and it's like I will absolutely when I get there in my career give them the opportunities, but like my career is so little at this point in terms of what I get to art direct, like I just I can only help so many people at one time, but
Yeah.
I will. It's just you got to push. You just really
Yeah.
got to push.
It can get heartbreaking, and at a certain point, yeah. I mean, like pretty much like all the things in your life pretty much are screaming at you to quit art, and just like having to push forward. It's just always a huge effort. It's not like passive. It's not like
No.
oh, I just. I mean, it's not like you're constantly going against the current of the river. It feels like it at a
Mm.
certain point, and at a certain point, you just like get used to that. Get used to the idea that people are going to be against you. Could be your family or stuff like that, and or it could be your economic situation or whatever it is, family issues and stuff like that will present themselves. It's just like there's every opportunity to just like say no, and the idea that I mean it's a hostile type of environment to become a freelancer a little bit. That's how I see it, and just being able to, I think, discover what are the reasons. I mean, the main reason why I'm saying this is because Daniel and I came up with the idea for this channel for that same reasons. Because sometimes you see certain artists that at a certain point were super big or super popular for some reason, and just like they fell off the screen, and you ask yourself like, what happened? What's the thing that went on like that kind of like made that happen? And if uncovering that a little bit, can help. It's
Yeah.
a good.
No. I mean, I think it's super important for artists to try. And like clearly you don't have to like be super transparent with like every person that approaches you, but like just in a general sense, like be transparent about what it takes to freelance, especially to freelance, and just what it takes to kind of be in this career because it's not for everybody, unfortunately. Like I really wish it was, but like you said, that there's a certain level of grind that you have to do, and it's hard. It's hard on families, right? Like my partner and I, right? Like I have to constantly um like tell her it's like, hey, I'm working, right? Like I'm gonna work all night tonight, you know.
Yeah,
It is like, I'm sorry, like I'm gonna wake up well before you, and I'm gonna be up till like 4 a.m. just like getting some work done.
yeah,
And even though we live together, I'm not gonna see you. Like, I'm sorry, I love you. Like it's
yeah,
very hard on families. It's very hard on friendships. Um, I feel like I'm super lucky that like a lot of my friends know that like I love them, but I'm an absent friend, right? Like it's hard for me to be like, oh, I gotta miss this event. Like I got work to do or whatever. And it was super hard, especially as a young person. You know, I think a lot of teenagers and young adults, they don't quite understand that, right? And so like I maybe didn't lose a lot of friendships, but they kind of just simmered out because I just didn't show up to stuff, you know, and
mm,
that's on me for sure. But like, it's also what I wanted to do. As much as I enjoyed those friendships, I really just found myself enjoying being alone, listening to loud music and drawing, right? Like that was my vibe.
Yeah.
And as an adult, like I've gotten a lot better and I actually like hang out with my friends and stuff. But you know, they understand too. If I'm busy because I'm working, then it's no problem, you know. But especially as a young person, I might have done stuff differently had I known now what I know then, but like, or what I know, yeah, whatever. Anyways, I might have done stuff differently had I known what would happen to those relationships and stuff, right? Because you know, I was too busy focused on just me that I didn't focus on other stuff, and that's again, that's fine. It was choices everyone makes to do that stuff, but for young people who are maybe feeling alone and or because they're secluded themselves because they have the dream, you know, it's a really tough choice to make to be like, oh, I'm gonna hone this skill, I'm gonna improve my art at the expense of basically my entire social life, because that's oftentimes what happens.
Yeah, and your mental health. So
Yeah,
I think we can all relate to that stuff, especially when you're starting out and you just want to get that first job and you want to show your parents or whoever else that, this isn't some sort of fantasy that's never going to happen. And you just go all in and start grinding out whatever you can, doing your portfolio or just applying and not getting any answers and just, going deeper and deeper and at some point you're so deep that you realize like okay there's no turning back now, I've got to
yeah,
yeah,
make
yeah,
this happen.
yeah,
So
yeah. At
we
some
can all
point,
relate
there's
to that stuff.
what is it, like a sunk cost fallacy? Like you've already done too much, you got to keep going. Like,
yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, yeah, hunting that first big job is like it's like a weird adrenaline rush, but one that's like soul crushing because you're just like, I'm gonna keep doing it, I'm gonna keep doing it, but you hear nothing back and you hear nothing back. And
Oh man.
I mean, I probably easily went like 8 months without ever getting a response for something, and it's just like there was definitely days where it's just like I'm face planting in bed and I'm just kind of like, I'm just gonna stay here all day. Like I don't have the energy. Like this is it, man. I'm just gonna die right here. And then you get an email and all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, like I have a job. Like let's go. And like, you know, there's there's certainly, yeah, it's just rough. And I just want people to know that it's rough, but like not to be scared, right? Like don't be scared about how tough it is. Like it's, to me, it's a super rewarding career to be in. Um, Especially, I was discussing this with some other people recently that, you know, I'm super glad I didn't end up in the game dev industry, because as cool as it is and as much as I love like love games and love media and stuff, I feel like being an illustrator, especially in like print media and stuff like that, your contribution to the project shines so much
So
more,
much more.
right? Like
Yeah, I agree.
if you're trying to be in game dev or like in movies or in like 3D movies and stuff, it's like, oh man, like you're the guy that gets to set up like the rim lighting for Ratatouille's eyes in like 3 scenes in the movie.
Yeah,
And it's like, how do you show anyone that and be proud of it, right?
yeah,
And you should, I mean, you should be proud of it. It's a huge team effort. It literally takes like 2,000 people to make a Pixar movie and whatever. It's a crazy achievement. but like on a personal side, it's like super hard to be proud of because it's very hard to point out exactly what you contributed to that project. But it's like, oh man, I painted the new book cover for D&D, right? There it is. It's on the shelf. It's right
Yeah.
there, and you can go pick it up. That's my art, and no one even touched it. It's just the thing I painted, and they slapped a logo on it, and we're good. And it's so rewarding when you finally have like a project you worked on like in your hands, and you're just like, oh, this is so cool. Like this is so rad.
And we all know, like a Carl Ortiz working for, Marvel, and like Jamie Jones working for this other project or stuff like that. But there's only those people. I
Hmm.
mean, how many projects for those people are? It's just like there are not many artists that are just like handpicked like that, and to achieve to that level, it requires so much work and so much time, and you have to go through stuff in the meantime. Like you cannot be like constantly, like I say, like you cannot be in stasis in the meantime while you're
Hmm.
just like prepping yourself up for the big game or the big leagues, like people like to say. But yeah, I mean, for me also, just like working in print media is like so much more rewarding. And going with that,
Something else.
sorry,
Oh, sorry.
no, no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that like the best advice I've ever been given about my career was definitely don't set goals for yourself, right? Like at least big goals. Like always set short term goals. Like don't be like, oh, I'm gonna work for Magic the Gathering
Yeah,
because
I agree.
that's so far. Like
That's so far.
usually it's such a far goal that you'll probably burn out before you get there. It's incredibly frustrating to attempt to get to where you want to get. You might not ever even get there, and you're going to be let down at that point. By the time you get there, it might not even be what you expect, and you're going to be let down. And so, like, set very short-term goals, like whether that's like, oh, I just want to like do a book cover. Like, doesn't matter what it's for, just like I want to do a book cover, and then get that job, do the book cover, be rewarded, get that endorphin rush from doing the project that you wanted to do, and then pick another short-term goal. And for me, that's always been super helpful because I started off as like, I'm going to work for Magic. I'm going to work for Magic. I want to do a
Oh yeah,
Magic card, and
everybody,
like, I,
every
I,
fantasy
yeah, every
artist.
most of us, yeah,
Yeah.
and I still haven't, and that's fine. I got to work with Wizards on the release trailer for Spelljammer recently, and like so I unofficially like managed to work for Wizards of the Coast, like, and like I didn't even realize it. Like I was done with the trailer and it was out, and I was like, oh, like I actually finally I finally had a lifelong goal that I achieved. Like that's pretty
I
neat,
can
but
put them in my
like
portfolio.
yeah, it's like
That
oh, it's super cool when you finally
WOTC
do it.
looks so good in there. It's like a
And
stamp.
it's just like but like had I been chasing that, I mean I'm 33, so like it would have taken me 20 some odd years to finally achieve that goal. And by the time it would have come around to me, I probably would have just been like so disenfranchised with my job had that been the goal I had been pursuing this whole time. But by giving it up, and not like abandoning the goal, but like
Yeah,
just by not focusing on
to
that
keep it in the
aspect
back
of
of
my
your head.
career,
Yeah.
it was super healthy for me because I could just do anything else and not be upset that like, oh, it's still not Wizards. I'm not good enough to do Wizards. I'm not good enough to do Magic. It was always just more portfolio pieces, right? This is stuff I'm building my portfolio with. And
Yeah.
one day, if they come to me, cool. And if one day they don't, then that's fine. I have a very, very exciting body of work and a portfolio that I'm proud of. And that's really the most important thing. If you have a portfolio you're proud of and you're surviving, those are the two most important
Yeah.
things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did the opposite. I completely went for Wizard for a very, very long time, and it was incredibly frustrating until I got there. But it was, yeah, I mean, like, I realized too late that you had to put it in the back of your head, not thinking about it, because otherwise the frustration becomes into, I mean, like Yoda says, like, what was it? Like, fear becomes into anger, and anger into dark side, some shit like that. I forgot already, but but it's just it kind of builds up like that. I mean, like the amount of frustration that you get from it, and you start realizing that the variety that you could have in your portfolio also starts diminishing, and you don't realize too what you're good for. Like in your case, like you fell into all this jobs and gigs and art, being an art director, things that I imagine that you were not thinking about like 2 years before or a
Mm.
year before maybe, that you were going to do and you were going to dedicate it, and even to think that you might be actually really good at, like you're missing out.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, yeah, like I certainly didn't even expect to wind up in print media. Like I said, I had been pursuing, trying to figure out how to get in the game industry and stuff. And like the only reason I even got into this industry, or even now so very closely associated with TTRPGs and 5e and stuff, is because some random person on Twitter asked if I could do a commission of their character, of their D&D character, and I was like, yeah, sure. I like half orc
Sure.
girls. That sounds cool. Sure, why not? And like, why not? And then I was like, oh, and that kind of like crappy artist way of like needing money. I was just like, oh, I guess I'll just do D&D commissions. This seems like a big pool of things I can get art
Yeah.
or like get money in. And just very quickly started doing a bunch of like D&D related stuff. And like I'd always liked D&D. I'd played D&D and stuff, but it just wasn't on my mind as like something I was trying to focus on. And once all those things started coming flooding in, like I'd have to say like exclusively over the last 3 or 4 years, I've only done tabletop stuff only. Like I have not done anything other than TTRPG work in like the last 3 or 4 years,
Yeah.
and that was purely accidental. Like I had no plans to do that. I was doing anything else, but yeah, I mean, you let your I guess let your portfolio direct you. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
just like people come to you because they see what they need to see in your work, and oftentimes that'll lead you into something you didn't know you were excited about. And
Yeah.
it's like it's super weird and metaphysical, I guess, but follow the heart of the cards. I don't
Okay,
know,
Jordan
just
Peterson.
kind of oh God, please no. uh and yeah, so just kind of, just keep on keeping on, I guess. Is that Joe Dirt? Is that, I can't remember who says that, but yeah, anyways.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of people that don't really even know that so many Kickstarters are out, so many games are coming out. And like, I remember for myself, like 10 years ago, I was just looking at CG Hub and stuff. And then I think Legend of the Cryptids was really huge back
Oh
then.
yeah.
And I was just like, oh, this is so cool. I want to work on Legend of the Cryptids someday. And I'm going to do this and I'm going to do Magic the Gathering. And that was the only two things that were going on in my mind at the time. And then later on, I realized, there's so many just independent clients and smaller companies and all sorts of games coming out. And just people, I still talk to, kids and students on Discord or wherever. They have no idea. They're just like, yeah, Magic the Gathering. That's what I'm doing, and that's it. So, I think there's so many games out there that just need high quality art, and not even the highest quality art. Like
Mm.
the bar for entry is so much lower than the bigger.
I would absolutely recommend that to anyone like watching, that if you're trying to get into like TTRPG stuff, if you're trying to get into like maybe being in either Pazzo or Wizards of the Coast books in the future, like just get on Kickstarter, find projects that have funded or are about to fund, or one that even you just think is exciting and that might fund, and just message them, send them your portfolio, say, hey, I'm freelance. If you're going to need art when you're done, consider me. And I mean, I've actually found several people like that for Red Sky and Griseldas and stuff. Like people, it's not a bad tactic, right? Like, because a lot of the times these indie companies don't have art drops, so your best way to contact them is through their projects.
Yeah. Directly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, sometimes it's just a couple of people as well that are working on it, and they're excited to hear someone interested in doing art for them, and yeah, looking for people.
I've been
So
shocked about how many people have messaged Red Sky. Like shocked. I over the past year and some change, I would have expected a dozen, but it's probably at this point at least 50, 60 people have reached out over the past year and some change, which is like an incredible amount to me because I just didn't like it. I find it very interesting that not only do people send me their portfolios, but people are like, I'm looking for a job. Like, will you hire me? And I'm like, dude, we're five kids in a trench coat. I have no capacity to do that. But, if I could, I would, but I can't. So like, it's just, it's kind of wild to me that, but it just shows you how big the industry is and stuff. But there really is plenty of work. You just got to know where to look, and that's kind of the hard part. Is in many ways, like I guess ArtStation has become the new DeviantArt. I mean, that's where Fesbro and I met, was on DeviantArt,
Yeah.
like God, well over a decade ago.
Yeah.
And
You gotta find
it's
us in
hard to
between
know
all
like
the furry and all. You gotta
yeah.
blow up all the
But
fur
it's
away, and
it's
then
hard to know where
we'll
the
be there.
industry is because those are the only hubs, right? Like
Yeah.
I guess DeviantArt's still around, but I haven't used it in forever. But like ArtStation is basically it, and ArtStation kind of um, benefits professionals before it benefits the little guy first,
Yeah.
right?
No.
It's mostly a professional's website,
And what I
and
always say
that's fine.
also is our station is also like it's it's just a an art an artist gallery for artists, not for consumers.
Mm,
Because DeviantArt, that's the
yeah,
other advantage that it has, is that many of the people that are there, and I would say the majority, are just hobbyists and art appreciators and collectors.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. My relationship with my portfolio is completely different on ArtStation than it was on back in the DeviantArt days. Like you said, DeviantArt was almost exclusively posting to get traffic, and ArtStation is posting to impress ADs or whatever it is that I'm looking
Yeah.
for. And it's a completely different environment. And so it's very hard as an artist these days, I think, to like kind of know where to focus on what you're doing
Yeah.
because
It's all
the
scattered.
market's yeah, that there was a central hub for it, and that was DeviantArt, and then ArtStation kind of blew it out of the water in terms of like what you and I were like looking for in our portfolios. I'm sure Daniel as well,
Yeah.
and it's just kind of like it's very difficult. And like these days, like there's so many weird, very niche pockets of artists, right? Like I know Reddit has a very big art community, but like I Reddit is like unapproachable to me. I have like no idea how to even use Reddit. The few times I ever posted to Reddit, like my posts got taken down for like not proper formatting, which I didn't understand because like I would like follow the
Yeah,
formatting
it has
rules
kind
of
of
the
like
forum and
rules
they're
on the side. It can get convoluted. Yeah, it's like
yeah,
a
and
Discord
like I would
channel a little
follow
bit.
I'd follow them and like they would still block it and I'd be like, well, can you clarify? And they're like, no. And I was just like, all right, well, I guess I'll just never post on Reddit again. And like,
Yeah,
like Instagram is like heavily relying on hashtags and to an extent Twitter does too. And it's just kind of like, it's very hard to like figure out how to get your art seen these days. And
yeah,
especially now with how algorithms favor things that are already popular, it's a very
yeah.
weird time to be an artist.
No, since we were on the topic of giving out advice to, I guess, newer artists and stuff, I've seen a lot of people that are more interested in art directing, like over the years lately. And I guess, do you have any advice on like how to get into starting to art direct? What do you have to learn? What do you have to show in your portfolio or your experience, or
That's a good question.
how do you?
Mm.
Well, I've I've had a very, like we talked about, I've had a very non-standard way of arriving where I'm at. So like I don't maybe have the best advice, but like what I would recommend is being well-rounded. Um, maybe even practice like critiquing your friends in a cohesive way. Like if you can, like all of you and your friends, or even start a community thing where you like all kind of like pitch in on the same idea, right? Like whether it's like, oh, we're all gonna paint Faye this week or something, and then like ask your friends if it's cool if you like kind of direct them to see if you can't get them feeling cohesive. Because the important thing with art directing is not finding people who have the exact same style, right? It's finding people who fit the mood, right? Who are able to convey what you're looking for. So like for Griselda's, it's a lot of going for like lightly like halfway between like the Pazzo and the Wizard style, but like also retaining like a tone of seriousness to it, but also keeping like the color palettes very similar, not in a boring way, but like keeping it cohesive. Like I'm not gonna commission someone who does like super high saturated like bubblegum pop art to do this kind of like muted dark ghost adventure book. And so practice recognizing what makes art cohesive with itself, right? Like look through art books and look through or look at a movie or look at a cartoon or even like an anime or something. Like look at what made the thing feel cohesive, right? So like Star Wars, for instance, everything in Star Wars has a look, and you know what the look is of Star Wars when you watch Star Wars, right? Like you can peg Star Wars from a mile away. Like you see something like, oh, like that's like a weird like 1950s car kit bashed into a backpack. That's Star Wars. Like 100%. It's like this like retro punk space fantasy opera, and like practice recognizing those themes, right? Like practice looking at stuff cohesively. Practice also looking at all of the things that go into art direction. Practice finding like what makes the graphic design work with the project. Not all the times you're not going to have to do that for every project, right? Like I certainly had to dip into everything I'd ever learned about art and typography and layout and whatever for Red Sky because I was the only guy who was art directing. But on bigger projects, there's people who handle every stage of that, and you work together with them to make that work. And that's certainly something I'm doing with Ghostfire Gaming right now. Is that I'm working with like two other ADs so we can all get our pieces of the puzzle to work together. And then also work on understanding that criticism's okay, right? Because I know a lot of artists are pretty meek about giving out critiques, and just understanding that like critique is part of the process. And as a freelancer, understand that critique is part of the process because I've certainly met with some people who, for lack of a better way of putting it, like just kind of thought I was being an ass. And it's like, and I always word things like as nice as I humanly can, right? I say a lot of, I sing a lot of praises for people because I am very
You're a pretty
thankful. Like
nice
I'm,
art director, I gotta
yeah,
say.
I'm all like I want you to know that I appreciate the work you do because it's very, it's hard work. And sometimes people do not understand that the critique is there to help unify what we're doing with other aspects of the project. And so they're like, well, like it, however they take it, whether they think I'm erasing their style or their idea or whatever, it's like there's a reason I'm in my position. It's because I,
You're the
I mean,
director,
y'all know this, right? Like
literally.
you
Yeah.
need somebody else to look at your art
Yeah.
because if you just paint as you paint without critique, like by and large, you might miss something, right? Like, yeah, like a lot of young artists forget to flip their work and they don't realize that like their faces are all jacked
Oh
up on
yeah.
the things they're painting, right? And so it's like it's the same thing like that, even with high level artists, right? Sometimes they might not have noticed something, or like sometimes your posing of a character, like your silhouette's off and it's not open enough, or
Yeah, you get too
it's
comfortable.
not reading the way you thought it did. And so just understand that like if an art director is doing that for you, it's not a malicious thing. They certainly trusted you to do the painting in the first place, so they're looking to just clear up some aspect that they might be confused on. So I'd say if you're looking to be an art director, learn how to do that, but do it nicely, right? And don't be an ass, right? Don't
Don't
be
be
like,
an
oh, you
ass.
fucked up, you're such a shitty, like don't be an ass about it. Like it's just it's like it's just kind of like I literally I always start with like praising them for what it is,
And then dropping
saying
the
here's the
hammer.
things that, and then saying you're a piece of shit now, and then I always just I always list the things that I need adjusted, and then I thank them again for doing the adjustments, and like that's really all you have to do to be nice about it. And so yeah, I would just recommend like those steps. How to get here, I don't really know how how to give you advice for that because like I don't know. My suggestion would be to kind of do what I do or did and find little projects that are starting or start one of your own projects and AD it that way. And like you can kickstart stuff that is successful and you don't need to make a lot of money for like a couple grand, right? Like a zine. You could like kickstart a zine, like, oh, I want to do like a small, like weird eldritch bestiary or something zine, and I just need to raise $500 and then I can print off, however many copies I need. And you could easily art direct that and you could easily put it in a portfolio and be solid, right? Like there's ways to start that I didn't take, but you definitely could, and it would be probably very helpful. But the main thing is that you probably need to have something in your portfolio first that you've art directed because that's how I got in with Ghostfires. I had proof that hey, I could do a cohesive job on some projects, and Red Sky was for me the one that I had, and at the time it was very cohesive and good, so I guess it worked out. But yeah, I would find little projects to either help art direct for, or even, for instance, like if you're a gamer, maybe like hanging out on some mod forums or like looking out for like projects that are going into like, like I know you're not a huge fan, Fezra, of Fallout, but like Fallout has like 3 or 4 different like total conversion mods that like completely change the game. Like they need an art director for that, right? And
Yep.
if you get in early with a project like that and you say, hey, I want to AD or I want to be the assistant AD, I want to learn the ropes, like by and large those communities are pretty nice and they'll probably let you.
What do you see yourself doing in the future now? I mean, I know that you're kind of like, like surfing the wave, but
No, no long-term goals, man.
no,
uh,
like at least like next week, do you know what you're doing?
um, yeah, I surprisingly discovered that I love art directing. It's super fun.
That's awesome.
Um, I'd love to keep painting, obviously. Like I'll be doing some more work here in the future for Wizards of the Coast for a bunch of NDA stuff that I can't talk about. But so like that's super exciting because like that I think it starts beginning of next month or something like that. So things like that are always like super exciting to do, and like I would love
That's
to keep
awesome.
doing them. I would certainly love to be brought on or do some more like long-term art directing for something, just for my own sanity so I can stop working so much
Yeah.
more than anything. But yeah, I mean, I've always had a weird inkling too of like my mom and my stepdad and my stepmom were all teachers, and so like I've always had a little part of me that like would like to teach one day too. What capacity that would be, I have no idea, or if I'd even be good at it. But I certainly enjoy helping people, and like I wouldn't mind helping artists kind of wade through the weeds with it. Like, which is why I agreed to do this video. I think it's like super awesome that y'all give these like kind of behind the scenes looks at the industry, because I think it's super important. I didn't have a lot of that when I was growing up and when I was getting into my career. And so maybe like years off from now, like 15 years from now, I wouldn't mind like trying to get into some weird teaching role over some aspect. I don't know what that would look like in any capacity, but um, like I think I'm a fine artist, but I don't think I'm like the best to be teaching people. Like that's a whole other ballpark in my mind. But yeah, I mean either ADing or I mean I guess the big dream is that like Red Sky takes off and I can just you know be the principal art director for Sora Studios forever until I die. I guess it seems fine.
That's awesome. No, that's awesome because it doesn't put everybody thinks like, oh, you need to have like a 5 year plan or what's. I mean, you want to, it kind of helps to visualize,
Mhm.
like where are you going and just like to uh, path your future somewhere for the people that are too lost with things. But ideally, yeah, you want to be relaxed. You want to be like enjoying the present, you know, and
And that's to
just
say too, like
trying to
I'm not so
focus what
laissez
you got.
I'm not so laissez-faire that like I'm not worried about like retirement, right? Like I'm like save for retirement and stuff like that. Like I have a plan, but like what gets me to that end goal, I don't really know, right? Like I save, I do what I can to set myself up for the future, but like what that means on like a year to year basis, I have no idea. Like if a larger company than Ghostfire or something offered me a job, like would I take it? I don't know. I'd have to see how it feels at the time, right? Like
Yeah,
if I have to relocate, I might consider it. Like I don't ever discount any of those options until I see them.
yeah.
Or like even a while ago, I got like a job offer from I don't know if I can actually say it was like an NDA thing, but it was like a relocate to LA thing. And
Oh, okay.
in my mind, the compensation was not high enough to make me want to move to LA, and I was
Yeah.
just kind of like sure, like it's a fine offer, I guess, but like I'm
Uh,
not doing bad
so
where I'm at.
expensive.
So yeah, it was just kind of like I might actually be more poor in LA than I am here. So I'm
Yeah.
just kind of like, I think I'll just
But you'll be working
stay.
for
Like,
us.
yeah, and it's just kind of like, is that worth it? Like relocating me and my partner, and all for animals, and it's just like I'm good, thank you,
Yeah.
thanks for considering me, but like yeah. So if a different offer comes and it's if it's good, I might consider it. I don't discount doing anything, right? Like now that I'm doing cinematic directing, I mean that could mean anything, right? Like if I keep doing it for a couple years, like I could move into TV and film. I could move into other stuff with that kind of portfolio. It's not something I've considered because I enjoy where I'm at right now, but like I wouldn't be upset if like J.J. Abrams is like, "Hey, come work on the next Star Wars 25th with me." I'm like, "Oh, sure, let's do it." Like I'm not gonna say no. Like, so yeah, like
Yeah.
long-term goals, good and bad, but definitely. And I feel like especially in this career, just keep your options open,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Definitely.
just because you don't know. I mean, I would love to. I mean, I'm just a geek, so like, or a nerd, so like anything that I enjoy at any one time. Like if Star Wars came up to me and they're like, or Disney, I guess, and they're like, "Hey, you want to work on Star Wars?" Like, I'd lose my mind. I'd absolutely say yes. But then like if a year later, like Bethesda's like, "We're making Fallout 5. Do you want to work on it?" I'd be like, "Absolutely yes." Like I would
Yeah.
just like I would bounce around because like I just enjoy stuff and I enjoy making stuff and I enjoy not in like a weird capitalist way, but I enjoy consuming stuff, right? Like media. I love what artists can do. I love what art can do. I love new worlds can be explored so totally now, right? Like
Oh yeah.
it, art direction and world designing is so intense now that like and writing has gotten so good that like games these days or like media these days they explore every facet of a world. Like if you have a weird obscure question like, well, like where does the like how did tauntauns produce milk, like someone has an answer for that and it's just kind of like, oh, that's awesome. Like, and is it pointless, like sure, but like I love it. Like I
I can
love that
see.
kind of level of that
I can see
level
a
of
character
detail.
design for that.
Yeah. Tauntaun milking. Like,
Yeah.
and yeah, and so yeah, I would just keep your mind, keep it open and just kind of find joy in it. Don't not find joy in it, because if it turns into a grind, which it already is a grind, but if it's exclusively a grind, it's a miserable one for sure.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
man. Um, I think we call it like that's a great way to end it.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Been fantastic, man. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank
Thank you
you,
so much,
both of y'all.
and honestly, well, an amazing experience working under your command, and yeah, the Res Guy project. Honestly, a really fun project to work in. I recommend it to other people too to apply and to swamp you with emails. So,
Great. By all means, absolutely send them in. I will look, and if I get too many, maybe I won't respond, but I will try to respond to most of them.
all right, man.
Yeah, because this YouTube's blowing up. We've got millions of
Right?
Oh
views.
yeah, yeah. Sure. Wait, yeah.